Well, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. My name's Louie. Hope you're having yourself a fantastic day. Today we're going to do something we haven't done in a long time. We're going to do a kind of full-on market update about all the games that I think are relevant in the TCG space, certainly on this channel. And I'm just going to give you my raw thoughts. We used to do this once a month, and we haven't done it in a long time. We'll talk about the channel a little bit in a second, but we haven't done this in a long time. Usually I have notes, and this time I'm just going for it. Like, I don't have time. Yesterday was my birthday. I didn't get anything done. Haven't gotten anything done today. Our HVAC went out. It was really hot. So today we're just going for it. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you want to skip towards your game, I'll try to hold the box up, and you can kind of, if you want to talk about just that game, you can. So leave a comment, let me know what you think in the comment section. Argue with me, tell me I'm right, tell me I'm wrong. I would love to hear your thoughts on the things I miss. This is a two-way conversation is the goal of this. So yeah, the channel, man, I'm sorry, I have not. Thank you to all those who have stood around with me and keep checking out the videos, and I'm trying to figure out how to do all this. It was a lot easier in the pandemic when the store was smaller. I mean, we have all this space now. We got so many more people locally. It was a lot easier in the pandemic when everybody was online. I could sit at home and work on the channel and the store and the online store and the Patreon. And it was just a lot easier back then. And so I am figuring this stuff out, and I'm not saying I'm doing a good job at it. But we just hit 9,000 subscribers, so we should be excited about that. We got 10K coming up. We're going to open up that mirrored inbox. We're working, and I appreciate those of you who have stood with me, and hopefully we can just keep growing and keep moving. But I'm sorry that my videos have not been top quality. Let's just get into that. I'm done apologizing. So let's talk first Magic. Magic is baffling to me right now. I think that Magic the Gathering is in such a weird spot right now. And stores and consumers just don't know how to interact with it in this way. I think that one of the problems is Magic is such an old game that the old heads like me, I'm not even that in depth in Magic the Gathering. I started 10 years ago, right? There's people who have been collecting Magic the Gathering for 3 times as long as I have. But people like me who got involved 10 years ago or before, they interacted with every single product. And now Magic, you can't do that. You just can't interact with every single product. And even on top of that, it's getting to the point where you can't interact as a consumer with Magic the Gathering with every single set. And I hate that. And I think a lot of people hate that. But that is what Magic the Gathering is now. And so I think as a content creator, as a store owner, and as a consumer, I have to start changing my relationship with Magic and understanding that there may be things that just aren't for me, that I just sit out on. And I think that's where we are. And I kind of was hit by this today. My rep from one of my distros was basically like, hey, we're getting ready to ship out March of the Machine for pre-release. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't focused on March of the Machine at all. Like a new Magic set's coming out, and I have been more focused on Lord of the Rings, been more focused on, complaining about Commander Masters, that I completely forgot there's a new standard set coming out. And like I make content for Magic, I do Magic every day in the store. It's just there's so much coming out that it's hard to keep up. But that being said, I do feel like they are starting to hone back a lot of things. I think print run numbers, Dominaria Remastered, I think I actually called this one right. There's still plenty of Dominaria Remastered product available at distro. So I think I called this right by sitting out on it a little bit on my purchasing. But they seem to have scaled back. Phyrexia All Will Be One, they seem to have scaled back a little bit. And it seems like they are starting to hone in on print runs to make things on the market a little bit more stable, a little bit less, potentially a little bit less risk when you order product or when you purchase product on release. And we're starting to see singles prices too. Like they're balancing out even higher end Magic reserve list cards and like dual lands and Gaia's Cradles. They are moving pretty quickly right now. There are people who are actively picking this stuff up, and you may be upset about Magic 30 and the reprints and the lack of reprints, but there are people who are in this still. There are people who are actively picking up and collecting Magic the Gathering. And one of the things I see is people who are starting to understand that they believe Magic will reprint high-end reserve list cards soon. And I mean like this year is what people think. But when they do it, they will do so in such a expensive way, like looking at Magic 30, where it won't affect the price of old cards the way that we all thought it would, or a lot of people maybe thought it would. And that's kind of where I land. Like, I am not actively, listen, as a store, I just can't afford right now to actively be buying for my own personal collection. Like, if we get back to the pandemic side of things, where a world where stuff is really moving and flying, and the TCG industry as a whole is just on fire, then I can start doing that again. But where it stands, like, I have to make sure my store can keep going and keep functioning and keep going. I can't be buying a bunch of reserve list cards for my own collection. We buy them all the time as a store. I just had 4 Gaia's Cradles and a Bayou come in. It took me less than 12 hours to sell those cards at market value, and to move them and to get, move them through my store. And so people are actively pursuing and buying Magic the Gathering cards. And the online noise is so negative that I think it's easy to miss out on that. That there is a lot of interest in people who are building commander decks, and they want a expensive card. They have the money for expensive cards, and they want to flex that, or they want to show that off as a collectible or whatever. That is certainly happening. I think where people get upset is talking about reprints, and they know that when Magic does reprint it, they're going to do so at such a high value thing that it's not going to bring the value of the cards down at all. And that it's kind of a double-edged sword. For some people, that makes them want to go buy more, and for some people, they're just out. So long story short, if you are buying Magic the Gathering product as sealed product or as collectible, one of the advice I would say is to wait like 18 months right now. I, as a store, am okay getting burned on product by not ordering it. And that's essentially what I've changed, and my attitude is. And as a consumer, I would do the same thing. I wouldn't be buying as much product on release right now, or really ever. I would be focusing on things that came out 18 months ago and starting to accumulate that and purchase that and stock up on that for your more long-term sealed product. Nothing's changed in that. I just think if you look at a 5-year window, I think stuff's going to start moving that maybe we didn't think was moving. But all right, let's move on. Let's go Pokemon real quick. Pokemon is on fire. I don't talk about Pokemon a lot on the channel. Scarlet and Violet is seemingly not as good as everyone wanted it to be, but it has held up decently well. It's at like $120 a box, which is okay. But the rest of Pokemon, the Sword and Shield era Pokemon is absolutely flying. And as a store, I have to do little to no advertising for Pokemon. People come in all the time. They're not even kids. Like, there's more 30-year-old men coming in to buy Pokemon than there are anything. And Pokemon has, in my opinion, from all the TCGs, most successfully navigated outside of the pandemic hype and out of the pandemic excitement. A lot of the people I talk to locally, I say, when did you start getting back into Pokemon or getting into Pokemon? And their answer is, oh, in the pandemic, I found my old cards, I started opening packs, and I just never stopped. And so I think in a lot of ways, where some other games or whatever things may have been more speculative and about money, I think for the average person, for the average Joe, opening Pokemon cards and exploring that was something they do with their kids, something they do just for their own hobby. And a lot of them, they don't really even pay attention to the value of the cards. They just like opening the boxes and collecting the sets. And that is something I love about Pokemon that Magic just doesn't do anymore, is the ability to complete a set is so vibrant in Pokemon. And it makes Pokemon, it's a huge leg up. People want to keep opening product because they want to fill out their set and they want to open it, and that's a win. You can't do that with Magic because there's 15 different variants, there's 700 cards in this, and it's just too much. And that kind of old school set collecting thing is really alive in Pokemon. I think that's really, really good for the set. Now, Scarlet and Violet, the hit cards, they changed the pull rates and the hits. It's just a lot easier to get the cards. So I actually think Scarlet and Violet is going to dip in price quite a bit over the next couple weeks. But we'll see how much they printed. We'll see if there's a restock. That kind of stuff matters a lot. But it's a fun set to open. Again, I think there's just so much of it, or so many different. The pull rates are so easy that you don't want to go back to it as much. But Sword and Shield era is completely pumping. Is Pokemon in a bubble? That might be a video we do at some point. George and I have this conversation all the time. I think Pokemon is pretty organic in terms of people who, in my local community anyway, people really want to experience and collect the set themselves. But I could see the argument on the other side, seeing some online stuff that people, it's a little bit more bubbly. We might get that in a little bit. All right, let's talk about Genesis. News yesterday. Genesis, the collectible card game that we talked about a year or two ago, just announced that they are closing their doors. Haunted Castle Gaming is no longer going to have part of that. We'll talk about this a little bit on the podcast, I think. It's really sad. This is, as we move from like main TCGs to like the indie TCGs, I wanted to start with this because this is the sad reality of indie TCGs, is that the chances of an indie TCG making it long-term and surviving long-term for 20 years, there's only been 3 games that have done it. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering. That's it. And so unfortunately, other TCGs, they go this way, and they disappear and they end and they stop. And that's really sad. And I'm bummed for the people in my community who collect and love Genesis. I hope that they still find ways to play it. I know there's like a active community in our Discord server, KitchenTableTCG Discord server, that plays a ton. I hope you guys still find enjoyment in playing the game. One of the best things about card games is that it's on a server, right? It's not like a video game where the server goes down and you can never play again. You can still hop on and play and enjoy this game with each other. I hope you continue to do that. You look at like there's a Star Wars card game, Decipher did, and there's still communities that are active and built around that game. And I hope that's what happens with Genesis. I hope those communities keep going. So it's a huge bummer, but I'm glad that the cards still exist and people can still enjoy them. So let's go on to Sorcery. Let's go Sorcery. So Sorcery Alpha, I believe, is shipping. This is the Alpha Precon deck. I believe content creators will start getting some boxes in the next couple weeks. I did confirm we will do a box opening on the channel. We'll have one in the next couple weeks. I'm not sure exactly when everybody else is getting all. I have a whole Kickstarter pledge. I'm not sure when I will actually get that Kickstarter pledge or when you will get that Kickstarter pledge. But we are starting to see Sorcery hit the kind of $400 price point on eBay for alpha boxes. I anticipate that we will see alpha boxes come down considerably on launch. And that is not to say that I don't believe in the game, that I'm not excited about the game. That is just to say that the number of boxes is considerably high. And on top of that, there are a lot of people who didn't know a whole lot about the game when it was announced and when it came out, and they just bought it. And a lot of TCG people are into flipping cards. So I think that we will see kind of a dip as people who are just looking to flip, turn around and flip. But one of the things I think people are sleeping on with Sorcery is if you are a collector, we'll talk about the collecting side and then we're going to talk about the gameplay side after. If you are a collector and you want a full foil set, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get a full set of foils. I think I did the math, don't quote me on this, but I know it's at least 40 boxes in order to get, there's like 400 cards in the set. You get one foil, I think, don't quote me on any of this, in every 4 packs. I think I did the math and it's like, you'd have to open 40 boxes in order to get every single foil if every foil you pull is different. And that's a lot of boxes. It's going to be really hard to complete a set, which should help with the price point of the boxes. Now, I am, as a store owner, as somebody who's excited to play this game, I am all for these boxes going all the way down to MSRP, 150 bucks. I think as those who are innkeeper backers, you have no problem selling your boxes at 150 bucks and making lots of profit for store owners. And then I think what it does is it allows people to want to play the game. And I think when people sit down and play Sorcery, they're going to find a really, really refreshing and exciting play experience. It is different than any other card game I've ever played. I played a lot of card games. It feels different. It is so much fun to move. When Magic the Gathering came out, it was aimed to be something you did between D&D sessions. I have been telling my friends in the store that Sorcery is going to be something that you want to do after Magic the Gathering night. After Friday Night Magic or after our Pauper night, when everyone's just hanging out, you're going to want to be like, hey, do you want to play a game of Sorcery? Because it's refreshing and it's so much more, it's just enjoyable. It feels so much less competitive, and maybe it's I'm bad at it, and I'm not a competitive, card player, but it feels so much more enjoyable to sit down and feel the story and enjoy the game. I think that's going to be a huge win for people who play Sorcery and hop into that. So I'm okay with boxes going down to that price point if it means more people are going to play. And I think that's a huge win long term for Sorcery that we've seen that we need in trading card game world. We need people to play the game and to engage in the game outside of just collecting. And I think that that's going to be a huge thing for Sorcery. I really hope that Sorcery leans into this kind of instead of trying to compete with Magic the Gathering, leaning into like something you do. I think Sorcery is the perfect second TCG. If you have a main TCG, pick up Sorcery as something fun to do with your friends. I think that is a perfect brand for it. And then I think on top of that, it's got good reach for people who like board games and who want to experience their first TCG. So yeah, really cool, really excited. We will have beta for patrons. I'll probably launch that here in a couple weeks. I have confirmed, I have numbers. I will have beta for patrons and for people in my store. So Sorcery beta coming out soon. That'll be really cool. I think September is a release for beta, as we should get boxes in the next couple weeks for alpha. All right, speaking of games that are great for people who've never played TCG before, Cryptic. Obviously, you guys know, Cryptic has been a huge store thing for me. We have I would say we have 20 people who actively play Cryptic in a month, 20 to 25, which is really good for my store. I'm in a no-name town in West Virginia, right? A couple things. Number one, Cryptic has proven to me to be something that people who don't play other TCGs can hop into and learn to play. It's that easy. It's like easy to learn, fun to play, engaging enough that people who have never played a TCG can do it. And it's been really cool to see people in my community who didn't play TCGs hop in, and now they hang out in the store all the time. It's been a huge, huge win for me locally. Now, Wave 2 also just came out, and we started to see Kickstarter. So Kickstarter came out, it dropped to 160, 170, and then it started pick back way. It got all the way up to 300. Wave 2 came out, and Kickstarter boxes fell to about I think they're about 250 now, something like that. And Wave 2 boxes sitting at $100 to $120 price point. I think that's a huge win. I think the way that Tanner handled Wave 2 has been really successful. I know from my rep that Southern is basically sold out. At least my rep is sold out. I don't know how it works as a company level. My office is sold out. So it seems like the market has absorbed Wave 2 initially. And then, of course, we'll see Whatnot and that kind of stuff as it comes out more. But we're starting to also see a lot of people who have accumulated, and now they are going to start piecing off. And this is happening to me. I had at one point 2 PSA 9 white text Kickstarter Osiris's. I just kind of had accumulated them from trades and buying and opening one. And so I actually ended up selling one of them. So this is one of the things I think you start seeing, and I'm learning about TCG world. You have an accumulation period and then a sell-off period, then an accumulation period and then a sell-off period. So I think right now we're in kind of one of those sell-off periods. A lot of stores had to have, had to pay for their Wave 2 product, that kind of thing. And this seems to be like a little bit of a sell-off period right now. And that'll be interesting to see how Cryptic moves in those cycles. I think if you are playing Cryptic, one of the really cool things is that you can build a deck. We have meta decks on our website for like $95. There's a full meta deck with a 15 card sideboard. It's a really easy way if you don't want to open packs, you just want to hop in and play the game. It's a really easy way to hop in and play. It's got 3 capital punishments, which is the most expensive card other than Brassman's Will. And it's really easy to hop in and play. If you want to then flex and bling out your deck, there's something for you to do there. And then if you want to collect, there's a market there that's not. Honestly, some of the stuff, in my opinion, just seems like kind of cheap to me. The collectible side of Cryptic still seems very reasonable and organic. Things haven't gone insane. Boxes, it was hard. Boxes getting to $300. There's a lot of downwards pressure on that, and then it hit it, and then Wave 2 came out, and so it seems like there's a lot of organic demand and growth that's that is happening in Cryptic. So I think that's a really big win. And then we have the new set coming out in a couple months, in September, I think, or something like that. No, June, I think is what it said. It's kind of delayed. But a new set, I think, is going to be really, really good for Cryptic, because I know my community is already bored. You know, we drafted Wave 2. They're getting bored of the meta. They're getting bored of the current cards. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when Wicked Prophecy comes out, if that excites a new turmoil of people, or if that kind of keeps the same group of people, you know, just in the mix. So what I think is the most questionable thing for Cryptic is, will Wave 2 impact and get new stores on board to actually teach people how to play? Or did stores just see Wave 2 as kind of free tendies, a 20 to 30% tendies on purchasing product and selling it? Or will they actually engage in teaching people in their local communities how to play? Cryptic will not succeed as just a collectible card game. I have zero faith that Cryptic will succeed because of collectors and investors. Cryptic will succeed if stores and communities are built around the gameplay, and people are excited about playing the game and then collecting on the back end. That is the win for Cryptic, is I think it's set up to do that. It's up to local communities and stores to now make that happen and not get into this like just free instant attendees type attitude for things. So very interested to see that. We have been loving Cryptic. My community's been loving Cryptic. We're sending in cards to get graded. We're we're opening packs. It's been great. It's been really exciting. Big fan of Cryptic. All right, let's talk about Flesh and Blood. We haven't talked about Flesh and Blood in a long time on the channel. You guys know I have my own biases and whatever. I have my biases on all this stuff. I will do my best to just share what I feel about Flesh and Blood like I have the rest of the games. I think Flesh and Blood, from a gameplay perspective, we saw the meta really turn good. It figured out and really wide and open and exciting. And I think people really enjoyed that. And I think that was really, really good for the game. Coming off the backs of Starvo and some just not healthy gameplay scenarios, it seems like the meta for Flesh and Blood was really, really good for a long time. Dynasty came out. Dynasty, I think they tried to do this kind of really super rare chase Marvel thing. And man, I feel like it was too much. Like, I feel like the Marvel, the super pull that's more rare than the alpha heart. I just feel like it was a little desperate, to be honest. I think Flesh and Blood needs, I don't care, it doesn't matter what they need to do. I think Flesh and Blood succeeding is player-based growth and mass adaptation from stores, not just in exciting metropolitan areas, but in rural areas where, leaning into local game stores and leaning into that is what this game was always about at the beginning and what excited people. And so the whole super high chase rarity thing, it just didn't do it for me. It just made me kind of annoyed, to be honest. Like, Flesh and Blood doesn't need more of the like whale attitudes for it. Flesh and Blood needs organic growth and excitement and people playing at the big tournaments and that kind of thing. That's what Flesh and Blood needs, and that's what they need to lean into. And they do that. They do a lot of that stuff. I just don't understand why Dynasty had to have that kind of super rare thing that's more rare than the Alpha Heart. Now, a couple other things with Flesh and Blood. The new set, seeing Outsiders, a lot of people really excited about that. I know even a couple people that I still interact with that hadn't engaged with Flesh and Blood for maybe 6 months, wanted to open up a box or a case of Outsiders just because of the heroes, the Ranger class and that kind of stuff that made them excited for like going back to WTR style things. I think that's a huge win for Flesh and Blood. If they are able to capitalize on bringing people back into the game, I think that will be a really big win for those who exited the community after a bunch of stuff happened, after the Monarch fiasco and that kind of thing. And so yeah, we'll see if that actually ends up happening, or if those people just open up packs for nostalgia and it's just kind of a one and done type thing. If people start playing, if those people who exited start playing again actively, that'll be really, really good for Flesh and Blood. One of the things Flesh and Blood has always struggled with is small communities. Because Flesh and Blood is such a competitive game with low variance, it's really difficult for people to enjoy Flesh and Blood in competitive areas. And so one of the reasons why I feel like it doesn't do very well in rural areas where you don't have as big of a crowd is if you have a 10-person event and the same person wins every single week and every single time, and they're not willing to, then it just turns into this not fun thing. And that's one of the reasons I think you've seen quite a few stores stop carrying Flesh and Blood. Now, in metropolitan areas where you see these hot pockets like Texas and Florida and Chicago, where you see these big, large groups of people, you can have a 40-person armory event, a 30-person armory event that isn't spikeable because there's so many people there that can play the game really, really well. And I think that the Flesh and Blood flourishes in those scenarios and in those areas. So, yeah. All right, let's talk then about Unlimited. I was able to get a bunch of WTR boxes from Distro a couple weeks ago, a month ago. I don't remember, 2 months ago. I don't remember how long ago it was. I just kind of asked my rep, hey, what's going on with Flesh and Blood and what's the products, and they had WTR, and I looked online and WTR was available. And WTR has been flying like crazy. I've been able to sell a significant amount of it. And it's interesting to see people targeting the Belgium print run over the Japanese print run. I always kind of thought this would happen. But that being said, it's wide. There's a decent chunk of people who are picking up WTR, but it's also a lot of very similar people. It's also a lot of, I think the current market shift in Flesh and Blood, in my opinion, this is 100% my opinion, can be attributed back to the same 5 to 10 people who have always been playing the market games with Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood is a bigger TCG than a lot of these, right? But Flesh and Blood is still very small. It is, if you compare the number of sales of Flesh and Blood product compared to like a new Magic release, Flesh and Blood is very small and thus very manipulatable. And it's very easy for people to buy up, the market of one card or whatever, and then make it exciting. And I think there's still a lot of that happening in Flesh and Blood. And honestly, I would love to see where Flesh and Blood would be with just truly organic demand. Now, that's never going to happen in a speculative market, but Flesh and Blood tends to have a lot of that speculation going on, which is great. That means that it's in the limelight. It means people are interested in it. But here's my thing for you: don't get burned by it. Don't get caught up in the hype of it. If you want a box of Arcane Rising Unlimited for yourself, then yeah, you should pick one up at whatever the price is on it. But if you're just buying to speculate on things, you should know that there's people in the market that are buying up things at a bigger rate than you have the ability to. So just know that and just be aware of that, and buy what you like. Listen, this is true for all these games. Don't buy things you don't like, because anything can happen. Look at Genesis. Anything can happen tomorrow to make things go away. You don't know what tomorrow happens. So if you don't like Flesh and Blood, if you don't like Arcane Rising, if you don't like WTR, if you don't like Monarch, then don't buy it. It's not worth having it. Only buy the things that bring you joy, that if they go away, you'd be excited to have. So, all right, let's talk Flesh and Blood. Let's talk MetaZoo, and we'll wrap it up. This has got to be like an hour-long video. Sorry, guys. MetaZoo, you got native release coming out. Yeah, MetaZoo's still dealing with a lot of the overprinting that happened in the late pandemic. You see Card Shop Live right now with spell books that are like $10, like Wilderness spell books for $10. I think that MetaZoo has a long road of recovery from that kind of timeline. That being said, we are seeing like Seance is held up at like an $85, $90 box. That's fine. I think that's acceptable. I think native will come out at $120, and you'll see some fluctuations up or down depending on, I think the 4 different artworks on the box is a really unique, cool thing. There's nothing different inside the box. It's just like the boxes have 4 different artworks, and for those people who like collecting, like putting things on the shelf, that's super cool. I actually have a beta Genesis box, and I really like the way that they did it is like you can put the box on top of another box that's sideways, and it makes a little piece of artwork. And so like I like that idea. If you have multiple boxes that you want to display, like that's a cool thing for people who like that. So I think that will go really well for native. I think the rest of MetaZoo, though, one of the big issues with MetaZoo, in my opinion, and I see this in a lot of the indie TCGs, I see this certainly in Flesh and Blood, I see this certainly in Cryptic, I think we will see this in Sorcery for sure. Once the community has what they need, the game designers need to do something to bring more people into the community. The community has to grow in order for everything to get absorbed and move through and not erode in value. And so if the community is not growing wider and it's only deep and it's only, then it's just not going to do anything. So if MetaZoo wants to shift, they have to figure out how to do more marketing outside of the current reigns that they've been doing. And you know, this can come in things like a video game, or I mean, I've been saying for a long time, Magic needs to have a video game. They have got to do a really good video game. But you can do things like the video game, like the animated shorts. These are all things that everyone has been talking about for MetaZoo for 3 years or 2 years, or whatever. That MetaZoo is going to do those things. Is going to do those things. Listen, at some point, MetaZoo's either gonna do them or not do them. And so I go back to, again, if you like the product, then buy the product and enjoy the product. I would not, at this point, speculate on anything I've shown you. If you don't like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, you shouldn't buy Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. In 2021, you should have bought all this stuff as much as you could if you like investing in you know, auxiliary investments, because everything was going to the moon. But we're not there. Everything potentially is on its way to crashing and burning. So if you don't like the current product at the current price, I would not pick it up no matter what it is. And the same is very true for MetaZoo. I think if MetaZoo is going to grow, you're going to need to start to see something like the animated shorts doing really well and garnishing interest outside of the current MetaZoo community. Same thing with Flesh and Blood. Like the current Flesh and Blood community, excited. But what's happening to bring new people into MetaZoo, new people into Flesh and Blood? This is why you see, for a game like Cryptic or a game like Sorcery, the initial release or the initial volume sells really, really well and grows, and the value goes up on it because the game, it's picking up steam, it's moving forward and absorbing new people. And what we've seen in this first generation of alternative TCGs is that there is a stagnant point that these games have to grow from and have to move on from, and they have to reevaluate their current model. They have to reevaluate everything they're doing in order to figure out, how do I help this game absorb another 30% of population of people who play or collect or engage in the product. And so that's what MetaZoo's got to be focused on right now, in my opinion. Native, I think, will be really good. I think the print run from Seance, the reduction, I think is really good. It's a healthy one. And I think that we will see boxes do really well. I think Spellbooks, kind of the auxiliary products, maybe not as much, but having 4 boxes with a different, you know, artwork, I think is a huge win for MetaZoo. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, those are my thoughts on all the TCGs. I'm sorry this video was so long. Actually, I'm not. That's kind of what the goal was. But let me know what you think on all those things. Remember to be kind to the people around you. We'll see you again tomorrow for another video.